everyone, it's Joanne. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in central Alberta, Canada, and I was about to make a couple of graduation cards today, and I thought there might be some other people out there who might enjoy seeing how to make it and might need a few graduation cards themselves. So I thought I'd pop on and videotape what I'm doing so that you can repeat the process if you choose to do so. So today I'm going to be using the Party Puffins stamp set primarily. I will be using a greeting from here, Punch Party with Bravo greeting. And I'm also going to be using Prettiest Birthday, Congratulations, Let the Adventure Begin. So those are the three stamp sets that I'll be using today. And this is the little card that I'm going to be making. So it looks like a graduation hat. I've seen other versions of this on Pinterest, but this is the one I'll be making today. And I thought it was cute with the penguins lined up across the bottom. And when you open the inside, there's a little penguin with his little diploma and his graduation hat, and it says "You're the best." On this particular one, I will be changing the sentiment to "Bravo" and "Congratulations, let the adventure begin." This one is being made for a male, and the other two are being made for a female, so they have a little bit of a more feminine spin on them. So I'll put that one aside just over here, and we'll get started. So the first thing you need for this card is a piece of cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 9 3/4 in this direction. So if you're using your standard 8.5 by 11 card stock, you'll need to measure the 9 3/4 section of that cardstock from the 11-inch side. Otherwise your cardstock will be too short. So once you have that measured, you will need to score it at the 5.5-inch mark. Let me just double check. Yes, score at 5.5. So the 5.5-inch mark is the one that's right here, like so. And the next thing you need to do, I'll just move out my paper trimmer here so that you can see what I mean. So the first thing you need to do is line up your cardstock at the 2 1/8 mark right here, and make a mark along the short end of your paper. From the 5.5 to here is the shorter end. So just make a little tick mark with a pencil at the 2 1/8 mark. When you have that done, flip your paper, and from your score line to your edge here, you need to make another mark at 2 1/8 and 2 1/8 on the other side. Then from the score mark, again, line your score mark up with your track, with the middle of your track right here, and again at the 2 1/8 mark on either side, mark those with a pencil. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is take your pencil marks and line them up in your paper trimmer. So you have one at the 2 1/8 on one end of your score line, and one at the 2 1/8 mark on the other end of your score line. So 2 1/8 to 2 1/8, and score down across here. Then you flip your paper and do the same thing on the other two tick marks. So you have 2 1/8 here and 2 1/8 here, and score that line. So you end up with this crisscross in the middle. And if you can see that. The next thing you would do is take your 2 1/8 mark and your 2 1/8 mark at the short end, and trim that to make a point using your track and your paper trimmer, and cut both of these sections off the top part of your paper. So then you fold these two in towards yourself. So you end up with the point facing away from you, and these two sides should come in towards the middle. And that will make your little square at the top of your black area. Hopefully you can see that. Then burnish all of your score lines, and you can put that aside for a minute. The next thing you will need is some white cardstock. The white cardstock measures 4 this way by 5 1/4 to here. So then you repeat that procedure, but this time you need to mark at 2 inches, 2 inches right here, and 2 inches right here. And then you remove those two areas and form a point along the top of your paper. The next thing you will need, it depends which way you want to make the top of the I got a little smudge on my paper, but it depends. If you would like just one single sheet like I did on this one right here, then your measurement will be 2 7/8 by 2 7/8. If you choose to make a border like I'm going to do with the one I'm doing today, then your border is 2 7/8 by 2 7/8, and your inside piece will be 2 5/8 by 2 5/8. So this piece is 2 5/8 in each direction, and this one is 2 7/8 in each direction, sorry. And the next thing, you could put that aside. The next thing I will show you how to do is to make this little tassel at the top of your graduation hat. So the first thing I did is I cut a piece of card. This is cardboard, and it's fairly stiff, and I just had a piece of scrap lying around, and it's 1 inch wide. I'm pretty sure that's correct. No, a little more than an inch and a half. So it's 1.5 inches wide. It doesn't matter how long it is here, so long as you have a little bit sticking out past. And I've created 2 little notches in the piece of card. So I'm using crochet cotton to make the tassel, and the reason that I'm using crochet cotton is because it has a little bit of a sheen to it, similar to a tassel from a grad hat. I'm just going to trim off the part here that's frayed a little. And this, I think, is about 30 inches long. And we're going to make our little tassel. So to start with, take your thread. You could use something else if you choose to. Stampin' Up! Has several, a linen thread that would work great. And it also has some baker's twines and that sort of thing that would work probably just as well. I had this left over in my stash, and it had a little bit of a shine to it, so I thought I'd use that. So there we go. So wrap this around a number of times, and if your thread is wrinkly, what I did was take a little bit of water between my fingers and just ran it over the thread a few times, and it straightened out completely, as you can see. So start with your first piece towards the bottom right here, and then wrap around, going into that little groove on your cardstock. So I'm just going to keep going around until I have enough that it looks like it would be the proper thickness for a graduation tassel. And when you end at the bottom as well. Okay, and I think that should be plenty. And I'm just going to snip that right here. Now, the next thing to do is take your thread, lift up your threads that you've put around the card and pull off a fairly substantial piece. So this is going to hang off your hat, like so. So you need about this much. So that's about 2.5, 3 inches, I would think. And you have to form a knot here. So leave about that amount. So I'm going to put that there. I'll just move my paper trimmer out of the way since I'm not using it right now. And we're going to tie a knot in the at the top of the tassel. And I'm going to double that so it doesn't come undone. There we go. Then I'm going to take these two ends and put them together and make a little knot in one end. It's easier to do this, I think, while it's on the cardstock so that it doesn't run away from you when you're tying it. And let's see here. There we go. And I'm going to pull that as far towards the loose end as I can so that I have a little bit of it hanging down. Hopefully that's long enough for my center here. Should be. Okay. So the next thing to do is to pull this off your card. So in order to get it off your your cardboard, just bend the cardboard, release it from the little grooves, and it should come off fairly easily. The next thing you're going to need to do, maybe that's not quite tight enough, but it will be in a minute. So the next thing you need to do is tie the other piece of crochet cotton around your little tassel about a 1/4 of an inch down from the top. So right about right here, tie it in a knot. This kind of reminds me of my own graduation a little bit. Remember those little tissue paper flowers? I think those were done the same way. You kind of weave them around a piece of cardboard and cut them at the base. So there we have it. And I'm just going to give this a little tug with my scissors closed to make sure it's all hanging down nicely. And then I'm going to cut these loops, cut off my excess, and there you have your little graduation tassel. So I'm going to trim the other end here, and I'll show you what I do with that. So you take your graduation hat portion, find your center. I will use my ruler. I think this is 3 inches, so at 1.5. And 1.5 in the other direction should be my middle. So about right here, and erase my other pencil mark. It's going to be covered up anyhow, so it doesn't really matter. Now I have this little device here that my husband made, so I'll use that to punch a little hole through the cardstock. Now these little grommets I picked up at the craft store that we're all familiar with. They are white. when you get them. All I've done is use the Sharpie to go over them with the Sharpie marker, and I've turned them black. And I wanted them to resemble the button on the top of the grad hat. So we'll put that on. We'll wrap our tassel end around the little these called grommets, brads, and close them on the back. That hides the end of your tassel, and there you go. So probably could have shortened it a little bit, and but it hangs down like this when you have it open. So the next thing I'll show you how to do is to stamp my penguins. So I have 2 lots of penguins that I'm going to use today. Hang on, I'll just grab a piece of paper that doesn't have any black marks on it. So put my little pieces aside here. And the first thing I'm going to do is punch my little penguin on my small square of paper. There we go. And I'm going to have him inside the paper at an angle. So we're not going to line him up straight, we're going to line him up right here. And I'm going to grab this little guy. And line them up on here. Now this is not a Stamparatus that Stampin' Up! Sells. However, I will be using this today. It's the only one I have. The Stampin' Ups, they have lids in both directions, and these can lift. So if you're making a sequence of stamps, you can lift them up and move them down to make the image appear at equal intervals along the stamped area. So I do want my little graduation diploma with him along there. So maybe I'll put this magnet over here and put him right here, maybe. Okay, we'll see if that works. If not, I may have to restamp. So I'm using Memento black ink today, and the reason that I really wanted to use the Stamparatus is because the penguin, or puffins, sorry, I keep calling these things penguins. They are puffins. So his wing area is a solid black image, and I'm afraid that if I just stamp it once, the black may not be as intense, so I want to stamp it several times. So let's load our stamp with ink, flip it over. As you can see, it's not very black, so in order to intensify that, I'm going to restamp. His little tail seems to be doing something there. I'm not sure exactly what, but there seems to be a little area there that wants stamped. So I'll keep loading it until it does. Okay, I think that's not too bad. We will put that aside. As you can see, it's pretty dark. And the other thing I'm going to do is, if you see these little penguins along here, puffins, puffins along here, they are at equal intervals. I did measure these before. They are 1-inch stamp image, and the paper is 4 inches long. So what I'm going to do is place the little penguin puffin about 1/8 of an inch from the edge on both ends, and I'm going to show you how to do that if you don't have a Stamparatus. So in order to, I'll remove this image first. Actually, I'm doing another one of these, so I may as well do the second one while I have the chance, and do that one as well. See, hopefully my puffin covers up the black area that's smudged a little. Yeah, that'll do it. I'm using Memento black ink. I'm going to be using my Stampin' Blends on his beak and his feet. So they are alcohol based, and so that they're compatible and don't smudge the image. I'm using a water-based ink. So because the water and alcohol don't interact, that will keep the image from bleeding. So let's clean off our stamp here, since I'm finished with this little guy, hopefully. And if that image, you can still see a little bit of black there, I may do that one off camera a little later, but we'll put them aside for now. So the next thing I'm going to do is tip my machine this way. Not sure what it's actually called, but so my first little puffin, I'm going to line up the base of my stamp right at the edge of my stamping apparatus. And I'm just checking to see that he's about 1/8 of an inch from the edge there. And I'll put down my magnets to keep them in place and start stamping. And the image is pretty light, so I'm pretty grateful that I have a machine that I can do multiple images over the same area. Okay, that one's pretty good. Now the next thing I'm going to do, because I've placed this in one spot, I'm not going to move my stamp, I'm going to move my paper. So what I'm going to do is move it up to the 1-inch mark. I'm going to put my magnets back, stamp my image again. Repeat the process. It's not quite dark enough. Okay, so now I have 2 little guys. Repeat this, move it up to the 2-inch mark. Put my magnets back so my paper doesn't move. And do my 3rd penguin. I will call these penguins. Okay, I think I'll do it one more time. He's got a little bit of white bleeding through on his wings. Okay, and then I'm going to move it up to number 3. And repeat that again. wings are a little dull again, so let's do it one more time. Make them look nice and fresh. There we go. Now, if you choose to, you could make these guys shiny. I'm not going to do that today, but if you wanted to make them shiny, you can do this same procedure and go over it with Versamark and then clear embossing powder, and you'll get a nice shine on your little puffin guys, on their wings and the outline. But I'm not going to do that because it's about 3 more steps, and I don't want to make my video too long right now. So I'm just going to clean off my little puffin, and I'm going to leave them in my stamping gadget so that I can use them later, because I'm making 2 of these cards today. So I'll put that aside, and I'll put my little stamping gadget aside. And the next thing that I'm going to do is put my little grad hat on this little guy. So I actually have a little die that will cut out these tiny, tiny squares, which I'm using for grad hats. It measures about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. If you don't have one, you can cut a strip of 1/2 inch black cardstock and cut it in 1/2 inch intervals, and you will have little squares that you can use for your puffin to make his hat. So the next thing I'm going to attach is my little, these are matte black gems from Stampin' Up, and I'm going to attach one right in the middle of his little hat. This hat is too tiny to put a tassel on, so he's going to have his hat without one. Hopefully nobody objects. Okay, I'm going to use, these are Stampin' Dimensionals, these are mini ones, and I'm going to use those to lift the hat off of his head a little bit. And I'll put it on the back here. And there you go. And I'm going to mount this on a piece of, this is polished pink cardstock, and it measures 2 7/8 by 2 7/8, and I'm going to mount that on there. So because of that, I'm going to make some of his features pink, even though traditionally that's not the color of a puffin. Grab my pink Stampin' blends here. And I'm going to grab gray. So I'm using some artistic license, is it? It's called. I'm going to paint his little face. He's going to have pink feet and a pink and gray bill. So, even though he's not traditional colors, I think he looks pretty cute. And I'm just going to run my burnishing bone folder across the edge here. I don't like it when you cut in one direction. It makes the cardstock bend on the edge and makes the edge look rough, and I don't like that, so that's why I did that. And I'm just going to attach him to his base, and I will use my, let me see, I think I'll use this adhesive for here. This is the discontinued snail. I think the new one is called, can't remember. There is a double-sided adhesive on a roller that Stampin' Up! Now sells, and this is the discontinued version of that. So we will attach him to his little background here, leaving there should be about 1/8 of an inch on all sides. So we'll just line up one edge, and it should line up pretty good with the other edge. There's not much wiggle room. I didn't use liquid glue. I was afraid that it might bleed through, so there we go. Now, the next thing we're going to do is add our little puffin hats on the rest of these guys. So, you know what? I'm actually going to color these in first before I put their hats on, in case it's a little bit harder to do after I add them. Now, Stampin' Blends are designed to have a two-tone image to give dimension to the areas that you color, but these areas are so tiny that I'm just going to use the one darker polished pink Stampin' Blend marker. And so this is one of our new annual in colors that they've just introduced May 4th. So this is the polished pink that I'm using today. And I'm going to put his little beak gray like I did before on the other one. And it has these Stampin' Blends are alcohol. So when you use the light and the dark polished pink, for example, it will give definition to the darker areas and make it look more 3D. Like I said, they also have two ends. One is a sharper point, and this is a brush end. So you can use either one. The brush is generally used for larger areas, and the little point is usually used for the smaller areas. Okay, so that didn't take long. So there, we have one. This little guy is going to hold his in his hand. This one's going to have it on his head. And I'm going to put those little matte black dots on the center of each of those. The wind is just a whistling out there today. And I'm going to stamp my greeting right here from my stamp set. It says, "Congratulations, let the adventure begin." And we're going to put that right there. And hopefully I don't hopefully the image comes out nice and crisp, because I don't want to ruin all the work that I've already done on this piece of paper. So I'm going to ink it up this way so that I can see that all the okay, let's try this. Here goes nothing. I'm going to put it a little bit low because I just thought about, I don't want it hidden by the flap of the bigger hat. There. So the next thing to do is attach this inside the card, and I'm going to use liquid glue. For some reason I like liquid glue. It gives me a little time to move it around if I put it in the wrong spot. There we go. So I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch on all sides. And of course I did put it in the wrong spot, so I'm very happy that I put it down with liquid glue. Try to straighten it up as best I can. It's still too far left. Hang on. Not sure why I'm having so much trouble with it today, but okay. Okay, the other thing to do, I've got, so that's the inside. As you can see, it's pretty cute. And I'll leave that aside and finish this little guy. So I had some paper that has a linen look to it. So that's what I'm using for my little diploma. If you have white paper, this has a little bit of a grayish cast to it, I guess. And I just want it to look a little bit more like diploma paper, so I decided to use it. So the reason I'm curling it is so that I don't get a sharp bend on the diploma, and that it will circle, make a nice tight circle. So I'm just going to use a little glue dot to secure that. Now, the last time I did this, I used the same color crochet cotton for the little diploma as I did for the tassel on the front. However, I don't think gray will show up nicely on that. I'm going to show you how to dye a little bit of baker's twine, the same color as your Stampin' Blend, and we'll use that. I do have pink baker's twine, but it's not quite hot, bright pink enough for what I need. So I'll just cut this little piece off here. And we don't need very much, but I'm going to cut it a little longer than I need just to make it easier to tie. So I'm going to take my hot pink. Actually, I'm going to use the brush end. And I'm just going to run it along like so. There. I'm going to wipe off my fingers so I don't get pink ink everywhere, which would be quite likely. And I just am going to just tie this in a little knot. It's too tiny an area for me to do a bow, so a knot is what it's going to be. And just tie it around, double loop. I'm just going to trim off the excess. Toss those little bits. And I'm going to use double-sided tape to secure this to the card. So I'm just going to pull off what I think is the area to cover it. Ooh, I see that marker is bleeding. I'm going to hold off a few minutes and make sure that it doesn't ruin the little diploma before I attach it. So I'll just put that aside for now. So the lesson here is to make sure it's dry before you attach it to the paper. I may have to make another one because you can see that there's a little bit of bleeding through here, and I have a little bit of a mess on there, so I may make another one. And once I have that done, I will attach him to the inside of the card here. And that will be my card. And here's my existing card. Just push all my stuff aside here. Clear away my area. And this is what those cards will look like. And I think they're pretty cute. There we go. So I hope you're having a good day. I hope the wind is not blowing as hard as it is down here, wherever you are, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.